I hopped on the Etihad first class apartment from Abu Dhabi all the way to JFK, and let me tell you, it was off the charts. Seriously, one of the best experiences ever. And here's a laydown of why it's such a big deal. First off, we're talking about the Airbus A380, the king of the skies. It's like the biggest passenger plane out there with an upper and a lower deck. Etihad took this to the next level. They decked out the upper floor with the finest first class cabin you can imagine, and they called it the apartment. When it comes to premium flying, there's a hierarchy of cabins. There's business class, then there's first class, and then comes premium first classes like the Etihad apartments. Before COVID, Etihad was flying these massive jumbo jets to big cities like New York, London, Paris, Seoul, and Sydney. But when the pandemic hit, just like every other airline, Etihad had to put their A380s in storage. Fast forward to July 2023, Etihad decided to dust off these bad boys. They started flying the A380s again, kicking things off between Abu Dhabi and London. But here's the thing, Abu Dhabi to London was only a 7-hour flight, which was way too short to really experience all the luxury the apartment has to offer. But now, almost a year later, Etihad's bringing back the A380s to New York. This is some awesome news because the flight time between Abu Dhabi and New York is roughly 14 hours. That means you've got plenty of time to soak up all the luxuries this cabin has to offer. When it comes to first class travel, it's not only about the plane and its luxuries, it's about the whole experience, starting from the ground. Now let's see how Etihad handles all of this. Walking into the new Terminal A at Abu Dhabi Airport was like stepping into this fancy paradise. The place was just stunning. I mean, from the moment I walked in, I was blown away by how sleek and modern everything looked. The whole vibe was like super posh and classy. Apparently, construction for this terminal started in 2012, but there were a lot of delays, and finally, after a $3 billion spend, the terminal opened in 2023. As soon as I stepped in, I was able to spot the first and business class check-in area, and I walked inside. The business class check-in area was huge with a lot of check-in counters, and the first class check-in area was tucked behind. You're able to sit in the first class check-in area and someone else will grab your passport and do the check-in for you and bring back your boarding passes while you sip on some Arabic coffee. The first class check-in area then leads you into private customs and security, and once you clear security, you can head over to the Etihad lounge. The business class lounge and the first class lounge have separate entrances, but they are connected at the lounge level. I had access to the first class lounge. However, I knew that Etihad has a private room inside the first class lounge, specifically reserved for residence passengers. If you're wondering what residence is, it's the only cabin that trumps Etihad apartment. The residence is like a 3-room suite in the same A380, and it has a living room, a bathroom, and a bedroom, and it can accommodate up to 2 passengers. At the entrance, I asked the agent if I'll be able to upgrade to the residence room. She said the residence room was going to be occupied that evening, but they still had 2 more VIP rooms, and I could upgrade to either of them, and it was going to cost me $160 or 22,500 Etihad miles. She then escorted me to my room, but she also allowed me to check out the residence rooms. Here's the scoop. There are 4 rooms in total. 2 of them are residence rooms and 2 are VIP rooms. The only difference between the residence rooms and the VIP rooms is the presence of a dining table in the residence room. All of the rooms had their own 65-inch flat screen TV and a private shower and bathrooms. I had my own personal butler who set me up for all the best things the lounge had to offer. After having a nice shower, I made my way into the dining room in the first class lounge to enjoy dinner, and let me tell you, it was an experience. The dishes, the silverware, the presentation, everything was simply spectacular. 2 menus were elegantly presented in a leather folio. One for food and the other one for drinks. The food itself was of Michelin star quality. Although I was tempted to try everything on the menu, I had to save some room for an in-flight meal. I still indulged in a 4-course meal in the lounge. My butler quickly understood my fondness for scotch and brought me some good ones, with notably generous pours. I got to spend the next 6 hours in the lounge, which was plenty. I walked over to the main area of the first class lounge to check it out, and I also went to the business class lounge, which was reasonably busy. The business class lounge had a Constellation bar with a roof lounge, which looked absolutely phenomenal. Finally, I bid farewell to the lounge staff and boarded the mighty A380. I'll circle back to the boarding process later because I have some feedback to share and wanted to give you a heads up on what to expect. Stick around for that. When I stepped into the plane, the flight attendant looked at my boarding pass, welcomed me, and escorted me to my seat. In the first class cabin, you've got 9 apartments and 1 residence located at the front side of the upper deck of the A380. Despite the single aisle setup, some seats are positioned close to the window while others are positioned closer to the aisle. Plus, you've got a mix of forward-facing and reverse-facing seats. Personally, my favorite spots are rows 3 and 4 where you can cozy up by the window. Row 3 is rear-facing, whereas row 4 is forward-facing. I managed to snag a spot in row 4, but row 3 would have just been as sweet. It was 2 a.m. and I'll admit I was feeling a little bit tipsy and tired after all the scotch. So I let the flight attendant know that I planned to hit the hay right after takeoff. Here's the cool part. The flight attendant went above and beyond and offered to set up the bed even before we took off, so I could just crash once the seatbelt sign was off. It was a brilliant idea, especially since the bed was separate from a huge leather chair in the apartment. I grabbed my pre-departure champagne and I made my way to the onboard lounge. Let me break down this luxury for you. Having a lie-flat bed on a plane, good. Having a separate lie-flat bed and a leather couch with a closed door, even better. Now, having someone do the turn-down service for you and set up the bed, that's luxury. Being able to hang out and change into PJs in a larger than normal bathroom while this turn-down service is happening, phenomenal. Now, I am saying that instead of having to hang out in the bathroom, I can go to the onboard lounge with a glass of top-shelf champagne while this turn-down service is happening. That's a little over the top, don't you think? That's Etihad luxury for you. And that's a prime example of top-class service. 5 minutes later, Michael, my flight attendant, let me know that the bed was ready. It looked absolutely stunning. In just a few short minutes, we took off from Abu Dhabi. One of the greatest aspects of the A380 is how quiet it is. You hardly even notice the takeoff roll. Before you know it, you're in the air. As planned, once the seatbelt sign was off, I changed into my Giorgio Armani PJs, turned off all the lights, pulled down the window shades, closed the door to my apartment, and drifted off to sleep. I couldn't even begin to explain how those 5 hours flew by. I was out cold in deep sleep. When I woke up, I selected my dinner choices before heading to the shower. On the right side of the plane, there are 2 bathrooms for the 9 apartments, while the residence suite has its own bathroom. While the shared space means these bathrooms aren't as spacious as those on Emirates or Singapore Airlines, they're still a decent size. Perfect for accommodating a shower. Another crew member gave me a brief tutorial on how to use the shower, and then I was off to enjoy a blissful 5-minute shower at 40,000 feet. Checking off those bucket list items, you know. I returned to my apartment, opened the small dressing cabinet, and treated myself to some ESPA face creams and lotions. Maybe I should have used the night bomb before bed, but there's always a next time. I had this routine of starting my day with a cup of coffee to wake me up a little bit more, so I requested an Americano before dinner. I grabbed the Wi-Fi card with my code and attempted to connect my phone. Connection process was super simple and the Wi-Fi was actually very fast and reliable. Well done, Etihad. Michael came back and poured me a glass of Bilkah Samom, vintage 2016, and then proceeded to set up my table. Let me tell you, table setup is something I take very seriously in first class. First and foremost, the tablecloth should be flawlessly pressed. No room for wrinkles. Secondly, it should cover the entire tray table. Now I have to say, Etihad could definitely step up their game when it comes to pressing their tablecloths. This does not look like it was pressed at all. Out of all the 12 first-class airlines that I've flown with, only one has truly impressed me with their impeccable tablecloths. Etihad Airways. The quality of the tablecloth, the material, the branding, everything just stood out and screamed premium. The utensils, including the forks and knives, were perfectly placed. The glassware and the salt and pepper shakers were arranged just right. A neatly folded napkin was elegantly placed in the center. It's these little details that makes all the difference in creating a memorable dining experience. Next up was the first appetizer, the caviar service. Etihad absolutely nailed it. The caviar tin was opened on one side and a mother-of-pearl spoon was delicately placed inside before closing the tin. This gesture is pretty slick for a couple of reasons. Firstly, if the caviar tin is fully sealed, some guests might struggle to open it and risk spilling it in the process. So opening it on one side was a smart move. Secondly, it also suggests to the guest that the caviar is to be enjoyed with the mother-of-pearl spoon provided, while still showcasing the superior quality and brand by leaving the lid closed. Since I already indulged in the Arabic meze in the lounge, I opted for seared Australian venison as my second appetizer. It was presented with elegance, and the taste was simply fantastic. By the way, if you find yourself in this cabin, here's a tip. Go for their cognac, served in this fancy spill-proof glass. As for my main course, I went with the laham mashwi, which is a Emirati braised lamb served with barley, dried fruits, and nuts. When flying with the Middle Eastern airline out of a Middle Eastern city, it's always a good idea to try their signature cuisine. The laham mashwi certainly lived up to my expectations with so much flavor packed into every bite of the tender meat. Michael also kindly offered to capture a photo of me indulging in all this luxury, and I couldn't resist saying yes. I wrapped up my meal after sampling a few more wines, and I also enjoyed a dessert wine along with my dessert. This is not a comprehensive review of the seat, but let me show you a few pics and some highlights of what I liked about the seat. Each apartment features a spacious leather armchair and a separate 6-foot 10-inch fully lay-flat bed, ensuring the passengers don't have to convert their seats into a bed. The highlight for many is the privacy it offers, with high sliding doors and personal wardrobes, making it feel like a small room in an airplane, and hence the name apartment. The apartment is equipped with a 24-inch television, offering a wide range of movies, TV shows, and games. The remote control was very responsive and fantastic. The amenity kit featured ESPA hand cream, rest and recover balm, facial mist, and a pulse point oil. It also included a stylish leather folio large enough to hold a 14-inch MacBook Air or documents. This kit stands out as the most practical and useful one I've ever received on a flight. I really loved that leather folio. I couldn't find a single flaw in the hot product. It was impeccable in every aspect. The soft product, which complemented the hot product, was even better. As we approached JFK, Michael asked if I wanted to have my second meal. I was kind of feeling full, but I have heard rave reviews about the infamous Etihad steak sandwich and opted to give that a try. Once more, the table was meticulously set up and the steak sandwich was presented extremely well. So far, everything sounds pretty good, right? But not entirely. There are a couple of areas where Etihad could make some improvements. Remember I said there was a separate check-in area for first-class passengers? I was actually not checked in that area. I was checked in simply at the business class area. The agent kinda seemed disinterested and probably annoyed that I interrupted his cell phone time. When I asked about the first class check-in area, he bluntly said it's all the same and it was shift change time and there's probably nobody there. He didn't even put a priority tag on my checked luggage, and I only noticed that in JFK when my bags arrived late with the economy baggage. Etihad has a lot of room to improve. I mean, if you have a first class check-in area, why don't you treat your first class passengers there? The next thing was the boarding process. Unlike Air France or Lufthansa, Etihad doesn't have a special ground handling process for the first class passengers. With Air France and Lufthansa, first class passengers have a dedicated attendant who escorts them from the lounge to the plane side. Sometimes they are even driven to the plane side in a private vehicle. With Etihad, when it was time to board, I left the lounge and I proceeded to the gate. At the gate, I encountered a really long line where passports and boarding passes were checked. Upon inquiry, I was informed that there was no separate line for first class passengers. After about waiting for 10 minutes, my passport checks were done and I was directed into a secondary line for boarding. I was wrongly directed to the economy line because the gate agent didn't bother to look at my boarding pass and just assumed what class I would fly by just looking at me, I guess. After waiting on the line for 10 minutes, I got a little suspicious and asked the person before me if that was the line for first class, and they said no, it was economy. There was a huge line behind me and I had to push everyone back to get out of the line to get back to the entrance. Then I showed my boarding pass to another agent who now directed me to the upper deck where first and business class were located. Etihad has a few different ways to improve the situation. They could train their agents to avoid making assumptions based on appearance and ethnicity, print first class boarding passes on a different type of cardstock, clearly distinguish them from economy class passes, or even provide an escort service of first class passengers to ensure a smooth boarding experience. That being said, the exceptional in-flight experience made me forget the subpar boarding experience. I'm definitely rating Etihad apartment as one of my top 3 first-class experiences. If you've flown Etihad apartment, let me know what your thoughts were and if they were similar to mine on the comments section. Thanks for watching my experience, and if you liked it, please feel free to subscribe.